Okay, we are looking at a podcast today on the central nervous system within Chapter 9 still. Remember when we talk about your nervous system that it is divided into two parts. The first is called the central nervous system, which is going to take in information, process that information, and make decisions about what should happen through analyzing. And the information that comes into your central nervous system is actually getting there because of the peripheral nervous system. So that's going to receive all the information from the environment or from organs in your body and then relay that information into the central nervous system and then make things happen either to other organs or to glands or to your muscles. But something has to happen very often when messages are received. So here's just a diagram of that. So your brain and your spinal cord make up your central nervous system. And your peripheral nervous system, again, is all of the various nerves that come off of the brain and spinal cord. Now, your central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord, which are protected by the skull and your vertebrae. So they have a good bit of protection with bone in the skull and vertebrae. But as your body usually does, there's always more protection than just a layer of bone. So there are also layers of connective tissue called meninges that are wrapping around the brain and spinal cord, and these are in 3 different layers. Also, your brain and spinal cord are bathed in a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. And it's a shock absorber. So when you jump up and down, it's actually a liquid that's in there that is absorbing any kind of shock or keeps things from bruising or hitting up. Allows exchange for nutrients and waste products with the blood as well. So most of the stuff in your body is always kept in a moist environment, and so cerebrospinal fluid allows that to happen for your brain and your spinal cord. So we're going to take a look at the 3 layers of meninges right now. The dura mater is the outermost layer. So you have your skin, and then you have your bone. Remember, the bone is surrounded by the periosteum. And then right underneath your layer of bone, you have the dura mater. It's a very tough, thick layer that is right around the outside and kind of, putting your entire brain and spinal cord in a bag. Underneath that, you have something called the arachnoid mater. There's no blood vessels in here. It's this layer that is in here, and actually when we take a closer look at it, it actually resembles a spider web, which is why it's called the arachnoid mater, because arachnoid means spider. But it's a layer of cushioning between the dura mater and the last level, which is the pia mater. This is the inner membrane, and this is where nerves and blood vessels are going to be directly linked into the brain. So cells can get nourished. You can feel when things are going on. So if you ever get a headache, it's usually a headache within the pia mater. Is there something going on with those nerves that are in there, and they're sensing something is off. And so they're telling your brain, we've got pain up here because there's something wrong. Could be that you need to drink, could be, migraines, whatever it is. But the pia mater is where you're getting that headache from. So if we take a closer look, again, here's your skull, and then you have this thick dura mater on the outside, and then this is the arachnoid layer here, and you can see it's kind of like spider-webbed within there. And then the pia mater is this thin layer right down on the bottom, and the blood vessels lay right on top of that. These are some major blood vessels, and then lots of the little capillaries and everything will go right in, and this is your brain matter right below. So I like this kind of picture. It shows you the 3 distinct layers within there. Okay. In this picture, this is a real human brain, and it's just showing you the thickness of the dura mater as it's being peeled away. So the skin and the bone have already been pulled away, and that's how thick the dura mater is. When we do the brain dissection of the sheep, very often the dura mater's already been pulled away, so you can't see that. All right, so we're going to take a look at the structures of the brain specifically. Just as an overview, there are 5 major parts to the brain. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. It has sensory and motor functions, higher mental functioning. That's where your memory is, your reasoning. That's the big wrinkly part of the brain that everybody thinks about. So all the information that you hold in your body, that you remember things and how you learn things and everything, that happens because of the cerebrum. Other parts, though, are very important, like your cerebellum. Your cerebellum is at the back of your brain, and it coordinates all your voluntary muscles. So this is why you have the ability to walk and move and do all that kind of stuff that is automatic, but it's still voluntary because you had to learn how to do it. And then when you decide that you're going to, try to walk in a straight line, your cerebellum is the one that's involved with allowing you to do that without falling over. Your brain stem is regulating the vital functions of your body. So your brain stem is going to help you maintain your blood pressure, your heart rate, your breathing rate, allowing you to swallow. All of those things that are completely involuntary, you don't have to think about them and they happen automatically. Your brain stem is what is going to control those things. And then finally you have the thalamus and the hypothalamus. These two are part of a center part of the brain that comes together. That's called, let's see if I can get it to right in here where I want it to. Over here. Okay, it's called the diencephalon. And I'm having issues with my, so oops, cephalon. So the diencephalon put together is your thalamus and your hypothalamus, and we'll see this again in the next podcast, so you'll be able to spell it then, but it's diencephalon. Your thalamus is going to receive sensory information and then relay that information onto the cerebrum, where all your memories and your important stuff is held. So it's a relay station. And then your hypothalamus is actually going to work very closely with your endocrine system, which is your hormones. So that's kind of your control system in your body. It knows what temperature you're supposed to be, it knows what your water levels are supposed to be and all that stuff. And the hypothalamus will recognize when those things are off and allow your body to respond appropriately. You haven't eaten in a long time, your hypothalamus decides you're hungry and sends those triggers out to your body that make you want to eat. Okay, so here we can see where some of these major parts are. So your cerebrum is this large part that's all the way around. That's the big part that you always think about. Your cerebellum is this little part in the back here, and that again is going to control all your voluntary muscle action. This is your brainstem right here, and it is made up of different parts, but that is the part that's going to connect directly down to your spinal cord, and that's controlling all of your involuntary activity. And then right in here is the thing called the diencephalon, and the thalamus and the hypothalamus are pieces within there. And then there's a lot of other little structures in here that we'll take a look at a later time. We're going to concentrate right now just on the cerebrum and the different divisions of the cerebrum. So this is a picture of the cerebrum, and as you can see, if you look here, it is divided right down the middle. And basically we call the cerebrum as a division, it's called two hemispheres, and they are actually connected to each other by something called the corpus callosum. Okay, so the corpus callosum is going to connect the two sides together. But you may have heard about the hemispheres of the brain before. The left hemisphere of the brain is actually controlling the right side of your body, and the right hemisphere controls the left side of your body. So there's actually a crossing of the nerves that come from the left and right hemispheres in your body, or in your brain, and they will control the opposite sides of the body. There's also been a link to different types of functions that we do with the left and right side of your body. Analytic thought, logic, language, science, and math, those are all thought to be left brain functions. So if you're really good at that stuff, then that usually means that you're more of a left brain thinker. Whereas if you are very intuitive and creative, you're into that art and music, all that kind of thing, then you are more of a right brain type of person. So I actually have a little quiz that you can take in class, and you can see which one you might fall in. A lot of people fall into both categories fairly equally when you take this little quiz, so you'll see. Okay, now the cerebrum is further divided into lobes. Okay, and there are 4 lobes within the cerebrum. The frontal lobe is at the front of the brain, okay? And its job is to control reasoning, thinking, language, all that kind of stuff. So this is where you kind of, your thoughts come together, you decide if something is a good thing to do or a bad thing to do. All that stuff happens in the frontal lobe. Your parietal lobe is back here. It's the top part of your brain, top back part of your brain. And that's where you get your touch and pain. That's how you know what one body part is in relation to another. So your hand is further away from your elbow than your wrist is, that kind of stuff. We call this kind of thing somatosensory. So you can take in information and your somatic part of your peripheral nervous system is going to decide what you do with that. So, the fact that you can know that you're touching something hot, and then you remember that a stove can be hot, and you be careful next time that you do it. Your temporal lobe is right on the side above the ear, and it is mostly involved with hearing. And then your occipital lobe is way in the back of the brain, right above the cerebellum, and that is going to be involved mainly with vision. So it's going to take in information from your eyes and interpret that information. Okay, so here's another look at these different parts. So again, you've got your consciousness is your frontal lobe. Okay, motor cortex, that means that all of the body movements get coordinated up at this very back part of the frontal lobe. And then here's your parietal lobe, so your sensation, touch, all that kind of stuff. Occipital is in the back for vision, and your temporal lobe right here is for your hearing. Okay, so we're going to stop here, and then we will go into more detail with the other parts of the brain in the next podcast.